There's something that nobody talks about in relationships. Not the loud fights, not the obvious incompatibility, not the cheating or the lying, something far more quiet, far more invisible, and honestly, far more devastating. It happens between two people who actually care about each other. Two people who, on paper, should work. And yet something keeps pulling them apart. Something keeps creating this invisible wall, this distance that neither of them can fully explain. One person reaches out and the other pulls back. One person leans in and the other leans away. And the one doing the reaching starts to wonder, am I too much? Am I not enough? What is wrong with me? And the one pulling back, they're sitting in their own private storm, feeling something they cannot name, something that terrifies them in a way they've never admitted out loud. This is not a story about people who don't love each other. This is a story about two people who might love each other deeply and still destroy each other slowly. This is the story of the avoidant and the empath. And specifically, this is about something as small and as enormous as a kiss, and why that one act of intimacy holds the key to everything. Now, before we go any further, I want you to stay with me because about 60 seconds from now, I'm going to tell you something about avoidance that most psychology channels will never say out loud, something that will completely flip the way you see their behavior. But first, you need to understand who these two people actually are, because most people get this completely wrong from the beginning. The empath. The word gets thrown around a lot today, and it's been diluted, romanticized, turned into almost a personality badge. But a real empath, a true, deeply feeling empath, is not someone who is just sensitive or kind. An empath is someone who quite literally cannot turn off other people's emotional worlds. They walk into a room and they feel the tension before anyone speaks. They sit next to someone who is sad and their own chest starts to ache. They look into someone's eyes and they don't just see that person, they feel them. It's not a choice. It's not a superpower. It's actually exhausting. Because when you feel everything, you also absorb everything. The empath grows up learning that love is demonstrated through emotional presence, through being seen, through being truly, completely, vulnerably known by another person. And so when an empath loves someone they love with every cell in their body, they want to be close. They want to hold you and be held. They want the long conversations at 2 a.m. and the eye contact that lasts a beat too long. They want to press their lips to yours, not just because it feels good, but because to them, a kiss is a portal. It is the place where two people's worlds briefly become one. That is what a kiss means to an empath. That is the weight they carry into it. Now, here is the 60-second cliffhanger I promised you. Because here's what almost nobody tells you about the avoidant. They don't avoid intimacy because they don't feel. They avoid it because they feel everything, just like the empath does. Maybe even more. And that changes everything about this dynamic that you thought you understood. The avoidant. The person who pulls away when you get close. The person who goes cold right after a moment of genuine connection. The person who can be completely warm and present with you for an hour, then suddenly seem like a stranger. The person who flinches sometimes literally, physically, when you try to kiss them in a moment of real emotional vulnerability. People call them cold, emotionally unavailable, broken, commitment phobic. And maybe you've dated one, or maybe you are one, and you've heard all of those words, and they've either hurt you deeply or they've made you feel more ashamed than you already. Why felt? But here is the truth, the psychological, neurological, deeply human truth about why avoidants are the way they are. It started long before you, long before any relationship. It started in childhood, in the first relationships any human being ever has, in the place where the blueprint for all future love is written. The avoidant child learned something. Maybe it was subtle, maybe it was dramatic, but somewhere, somehow, they learned that emotional closeness was dangerous. That needed someone meant getting hurt. That showed vulnerability, real, raw, open vulnerability resulted in one of two things. Either it was ignored, or it was used against them. Think about what that does to a child's developing nervous system. When a baby cries and a parent comes consistently, warmly, reliably, the baby's brain learns something profound. It learns that reaching out brings comfort, that being vulnerable is safe, that closeness is soothing. But when a child reaches out emotionally and is met with coldness, with dismissal, with inconsistency, with a parent who is sometimes there and sometimes not, emotionally speaking, that child's brain learns the opposite. It learns that closeness is unpredictable, that vulnerability is a risk, that needing someone is a liability. And so the brain does what it was designed to do. It adapts. It builds walls. It creates a system of emotional self-sufficiency, a way of surviving that says, I will not need anyone. I will not show anyone the inside of me. And I will especially not let anyone get so close that they can see the parts of me that are broken or lonely or afraid. This is not weakness. This is survival. This is a nervous system that learned the only rules it was ever taught. And it kept that person safe, or at least it kept them from the specific kind of pain that comes from being emotionally open and then abandoned, dismissed, or humiliated. The problem is that those rules don't turn off when you grow up. They turn off when you fall in love. They don't turn off when someone genuinely good, genuinely caring, genuinely safe shows up in your life and tries to get close. In fact, and this is the part that breaks people, the rules get louder exactly when something real is on the line. The avoidant doesn't pull away when they don't care. They pull away when they care too much. And nowhere is this more visible, more raw, more psychologically loaded than in the act of kissing. Because a real kiss, not a performative one, not a quick peck before leaving for work, a real kiss requires you to be present. It requires eye contact or the closing of eyes that means the same thing, surrender. It requires your face to be inches from another person's face, which means they can see everything. The slight tremble of your lip, the moisture in your eyes, the way your breathing changes. A kiss is the most vulnerable physical act that isn't sex, and even more vulnerable than sex in certain ways, Becca Ray. AUSE can be performed. Sex can be a physical transaction with enough distance built into it to protect you. But a real kiss, the kind an empath wants, the kind they lean into with their whole soul, you cannot fake that from behind a wall. You have to actually show up. And for the avoidant, that moment, that exact moment of being truly, completely seen is the moment that their entire nervous system starts screaming. Not because they don't want to be there, but because being there, truly there, means that you could be rejected. And being rejected in that state of full exposure is the most terrifying thing their psyche can imagine. So they do what they've always done. They manage the closeness. They create distance just when intimacy peaks. They might kiss you, but they'll pull back a little too quickly. They might hold you, but they'll find a reason to move away. They'll have an incredible evening with you, full of laughter and warmth, and something that feels like real love. And then they'll go cold in the morning, or pick a fight about something small, or suddenly remember they have something they need to do alone. And you, the empath, you feel all of this. You feel the warmth, and then you feel the withdrawal, and because you are wired to feel, because you absorb other people's emotional states, the withdrawal doesn't just feel like distance. It feels like rejection. It feels like evidence of something you feared your whole life too, that you are too much, that loving someone fully is a burden, that the very depth of your feeling drives people away. And so the two of you begin this dance. The empath reaches, the avoidant retreats, the empath reaches again, trying harder this time, loving louder, pressing closer, because their instinct says that if you just love enough, if you just show them how safe it is, they'll stay. And the avoidant retreats further because the more intensely you pursue them, the more suffocated their nervous system feels, the low. Under the alarm bells ring that say, get out, protect yourself, this is too much. Neither of you is wrong. Both of you are in pain. And both of you are doing the only thing your nervous system knows how to do. But let's go deeper, because this is where it gets truly fascinating from a psychological standpoint. The avoidant's fear of kissing an empath, specifically not just anyone, but an empath, is not a coincidence. There is something about the empath that triggers the avoidant in a way that more emotionally distant partners simply don't. And it comes down to one thing: the empath sees them, really sees them. An empath doesn't interact with the surface of a person. They reach past the performance, past the carefully constructed persona, past the competent and self-sufficient image the avoidant has spent their entire life building. And they look right at the wound underneath. They look at the lonely child who learned that needing people meant getting hurt. They look at the part of T, he avoidant, that is desperately, agonizingly hungry for real connection and has never let themselves have it. The empath doesn't do this maliciously. They can't help it. It's just how they perceive people. But for the avoidant, being seen that clearly, especially by someone who is radiating warmth and acceptance and come here, I'm safe, is almost unbearable. Because what if they let themselves believe it? What if they open up? What if they lean into that kiss with their whole self, with that broken, hungry part of them that has never been loved properly? And then it doesn't work out. The loss of that, the loss of actually having been real, actually having been known, and then losing it would be catastrophic in a way that losing a surface level relationship never could be. So the safest thing, the only thing the nervous system will allow, is to not fully show up, to keep one foot out the door, to be warm but not too warm. To kiss, but not really kiss. To be present, but not fully present. This is the avoidance worst fear, distilled to its most honest form. It is not fear of commitment in the way people usually talk about it, some shallow inability to settle down. It is the fear of being fully known and fully loved and then losing that. It is the fear that the deepest, most broken parts of them are fundamentally unlovable. And so they would rather keep you at arm's length forever, in a kind of emotional limbo, than risk the catastrophic collapse of truly letting you in. And the empath? The empath's deepest wound is also being activated in this dynamic, because the empath too has a core fear. The empath's fear is that their love is too much, that their depth, their sensitivity, their need for genuine emotional presence is a burden that eventually drives everyone away. Many empaths grew up in environments where they were the emotional caretaker for a parent, for a sibling, for the whole family dynamic. They learned to suppress their own needs in order to manage the emotional states of people around them. And so when they encounter and avoidant someone who seems to need exactly this, someone whose emotional walls seem to say, please understand me, please be patient with me, please love me enough to stay, even when I push you away, the empath's entire nervous system lights up. Because finally, here is someone who needs exactly what I am. Here is a project of healing. Here is a wound I can tend to. Here is a person who, if I just love them hard enough, will finally be the proof I've been looking for that my love doesn't drive people away. That my love is enough. That I am enough. Do you see the tragedy here? The empath and the avoidant find each other not despite their wounds, but because of them. They are drawn together by a magnetic pull that feels like destiny, but is actually two nervous systems recognizing each other's pain and activating each other's deepest, oldest, most unhealed needs. The empath sees in the avoidant the P, our son, who will finally let them heal someone with their love. The avoidant sees in the empath someone who might be safe enough to finally open up to, but never quite safe enough to actually do it. And then there is the specific experience of physical intimacy between these two types. Because the body keeps score. The body doesn't lie. You can tell yourself that you're fine, that you're not scared, that this is just how you are. But when an empath leans in for a kiss, a real one, with all of their emotional presence behind it, with all of that see you and feel you energy radiating off of them, the avoidance body responds before the mind can intervene. The heart rate increases, the muscles tighten. There might be a slight pulling back of the chin, a barely perceptible tension in the shoulders, a subtle shortening of the kiss. None of it is conscious. None of it is intentional. The avoidant is not thinking, I want to hurt this person right now. They're not even thinking, I am afraid. You are simply responding to a neurological alarm that has been wired into them for decades, that says proximity equals danger, that says being seen means being hurt, that says the closer they get, the more you have to lose. And the empath feels every single bit of that. They feel the subtle flinch. They feel the kiss end too soon. They feel the energy change in the room afterward. And because empaths interpret the world through the lens of emotion, they don't think the avoidant is scared. They think the avoidant doesn't want them. They think they did something wrong. And so the empath begins to shrink. They start monitoring themselves. They start pulling back their natural warmth because they're afraid of being too much. They start being less instead of more, and in doing so, they lose themselves. They trade their truest, most vibrant self for a smaller, quieter version in the hope that this version will be easier to love. And the avoidant watches this happen and feels simultaneously relieved because there is less intensity to manage and somehow even more empty because the thing they were most drawn to, that full luminous presence, is dimming. And now they are in a relationship that is safe but dead, comfortable but loveless, and neither of them can understand how they got there. This is the cycle. This is the devastating, specific, almost predictable cycle that the avoidant empath dynamic creates when neither person understands what is actually happening inside them. And the saddest part, the part that deserves to be said slowly, is that neither person is the villain. There is no villain here. There is only pain recognizing pain and neither knowing how to do anything except repeat the patterns they were taught. So what does healing actually look like? Not the Instagram version. Not the you need to love yourself first and everything will fall into place version. The real version. The one that is slow and uncomfortable and requires both people to do something. Terrifying. For the avoidant, healing begins with one of the most difficult things a human being can ever do, which is to sit with vulnerability instead of escaping it. When the alarm goes off, when the proximity feels like too much, when the empath leans in for that kiss, and every nerve in your body wants to pull back. The work is to notice that response, not act on it immediately, not run, not create distance, but to sit in that moment of discomfort and ask yourself, what am I actually afraid of right now? Not in an abstract way. Specifically, what is the worst thing that could happen if I fully showed up to this moment? If I kiss this person back with everything in me, what is the catastrophe my nervous system is bracing for? Because when you actually name it, when you actually look at the fear instead of running from it, it begins to lose some of its power. The fear usually sounds something like, if I let them see me, really see me, and they leave, I won't survive it. And the work of healing is learning to tell yourself a different story. One that says, I might not like it. It might be painful, but I have survived hard things before. And being fully alive, fully present, fully loved, even for a moment, is worth the risk of loss in a way that a life lived behind walls never will be. For the empath, the healing is different but equally hard. Because the empath's work is not to love the avoidant harder. It is not to be more patient, more understanding, more endlessly compassionate. The empath's work is to turn that compassion back on themselves, to recognize that the compulsive need to fix and heal and love someone into openness that is not just love. That is also a wound. That is also an unmet need. That is the little child who learned that their worth was conditional on how well they could manage other people's feelings. And healing means asking, what do I actually need in this relationship? Not what does he or she need? What do I need? Do I need to be kissed fully? Do I need a partner who is present with me? Do I need to feel like my love is received and not just offered? And then the even harder question, am I willing to require that? Am I willing to say, I deserve a partner who can meet me here, not eventually, not when they're healed, but now, or at least soon, and mean it enough to act on it? Because the most painful truth of the avoidant empath dynamic is this: love is not always enough. Two people can love each other deeply, genuinely, with real hearts and real tears and real longing, and still be unable to give each other what they need at this point in their journeys. That doesn't mean the love isn't real. It means that healing is individual work before it is relational work. An avoidant who has not done their work will always retreat at the moment of deepest connection, no matter how patient or how loving or how understanding the partner is. Because the issue is not their partner. The issue is inside them, in the nervous system, in the wiring, in the story they've been telling themselves since they were small. And an empath who has not done their work will always find another avoidant to pursue, because the wound keeps attracting the same mirror, the same dynamic, the same slow heartbreak wearing a different face. But here is the thing that gives me real hope, the thing that I want you to hold on to after everything you've heard today. The avoidant empath dynamic is one of the most painful relationship patterns in existence, and it is also one of the most transformative. Because when an avoidant begins to do their work, really do it, not just read about it, but actually sit in the fire of their own vulnerability, they become capable of a depth of love that is almost incomprehensible. Because all of that feeling they've been suppressing, all of that hunger for real connection they've been managing and containing and running from, when it finally gets a safe outlet, when it finally gets a partner who is steady enough to hold it, it comes out as something extraordinary. And the empath who learns to hold their own boundaries, who learns to require reciprocity instead of endlessly giving, who learns that their sensitivity is a gift and not a burden, and that they deserve a love that meets them fully, that empath becomes something extraordinary too. Not smaller, not harder, not less feeling, but whole, grounded, rooted in themselves enough that another person's walls do not become their crisis. The kiss that the avoidant has been afraid to give fully, openly, presently, vulnerably, that kiss exists inside them. That capacity for closeness is there. It was just buried under years of survival. And the empath who has been reaching for it, who has been longing for it, they deserve it. They deserve to be kissed by someone who is really there, not halfway there, not 1 foot out the door there, fully, completely trembling and terrified and doing it anyway there. That is what real love looks like, not the absence of fear. The presence of someone who feels the fear and reaches across it anyway, not the absence of walls. The slow, deliberate, courageous choice to put them down brick by brick for someone who has earned it. Not the empath who makes themselves smaller, and not the avoidant who keeps their partner at arm's length forever, but two people who have done enough of their own work to meet each other honestly, who can look at each other and say, I see you. Not the performance, not the armor. I'm still here. If you've watched this far, I want to ask you something, and I want you to really think about it before you answer. Because the comments on this video are one of the most honest places I've ever seen people tell the truth about their relationships. Maybe because the screen feels safer than the conversation you actually need to have. So here's my question to you. Which side of this dynamic do you recognize in yourself, and when was the last time you were honest with yourself about the real reason you either reach or retreat? Because most of us know, somewhere deep down, what we're actually afraid of. We just haven't said it out loud yet. Say it in the comments. You might be surprised how many people are sitting with the exact same thing, reading your words, and finally feeling less alone.